Kai Havertz started at right attacking mid this game, having signed earlier that season for a massive €100 million fee. He'd been fairly inconsistent throughout his first season there, but in the most important game of his career so far, Havertz found himself in on goal and calmly rounded Ederson to win Chelsea the UCL title. But he couldn't really build on this, as after a solid year under Tuchel, Havertz struggled for consistency in his last season as a Blue, playing under 3 different managers and being misprofiled as a striker. So after his monk mode buzz cut didn't result in a new era, Havertz was sold to Arsenal for a big €75 million. But what was thought to be an overpay has actually been somewhat justified. Now playing in midfield again, Havertz is a key member of a title-challenging Arsenal team, constantly being a positive whenever he's on the pitch and recently rage-baiting Chelsea in the Carabao Cup semis. Mason Mount was deployed as the other attacking mid here, playing opposite of Havertz as their star academy graduate. He was a key reason to why Chelsea had gotten to the final, as he'd scored in both the quarters and the semis and was also the one who assisted Havertz's winner. He looked like he would become a future club legend now, as in the next season he amassed 13 goals and 16 assists, winning Chelsea's Player of the Year for a second season in a row. But unfortunately, he was a victim of Chelsea's chaotic 2022, having disputes with his contract and dealing with a pelvic injury which led to his departure to Man U for €68 million. And ever since this move, Mount hasn't been able to get back to the form he showed as a youngster, showing some flashes here and there, but mostly just being extremely injury prone. Christian Pulisic came on as a sub in the 66th minute for Timo Werner to provide a spark off the bench as Man City tried to equalize. In the semis against Real Madrid, Pulisic scored a huge goal to help Chelsea win the tie 3-1, and he almost scored in the final as well, with his chip going just wide of the post. He became the first American man to win the Champions League title, but in the next couple of seasons he found himself on the outside looking in, sometimes even playing at wingback, which obviously didn't work out well. So he decided to go to Milan in an attempt to revive his career, where he absolutely starred in his first season as he got 15 goals and 11 assists while also staying healthy the entire year. And he has just continued to be a great player in Italy, always putting in a shift and being an extremely clutch performer, gearing up for the World Cup as the LeBron James of soccer. N'Golo Kante started in the double pivot on the right side of the midfield, having had some injuries that year but still being one of the best in the world. And his performance in this final was an all-time great game, as he won the man of the match, suffocating Man City's midfield by himself and continuing his reputation of covering all land on earth. This saw him finish 5th in the Ballon d'Or that year, but unfortunately after this, Kante began to decline with injury, first having some knee problems and then suffering a severe hamstring injury. So both player and club made the decision to move on, and Kante went to Saudi Arabia to go and receive the bag, but he actually also played well enough to get recalled for the Euros that year. And while the tournament showed that he still kinda had it, things broke down with Al Ittihad and he has since forced to move to Fenerbahce, now playing out the twilight of his career as one of the greatest CDMs of all time. Antonio Rüdiger had actually been on the periphery of the team earlier that year, but he got back in the rotation under Tuchel and became a linchpin of the defense. He was a great leader at the back and delivered a brilliant performance in the final, making a goal-saving tackle on Phil Foden going through and controversially body-checked Kevin De Bruyne. He then continued this momentum, becoming one of the best CBs in the world and also having some crazy runs and long shots, but because of Chelsea's ownership sanctions, he didn't get a new contract with them. So to the dismay of Tuchel, Rüdiger left on a free transfer to Real Madrid in 2022, where he again was world-class, being their passionate, crazy leader and won a second UCL title as well. But as of now, Rüdiger has become somewhat injury-prone, which is understandable given his age, as he's only played 10 games in the league so far this year, but that doesn't take away from the great career he's had. Edouard Mendy was one of the great come-up stories in football, going from being unemployed in 2014 to starting the Champions League final 7 years later. He'd been brought in to replace the struggling Kepa Arrizabalaga, and after a magnificent first season, Mendy produced a calm, errorless game and kept a clean sheet in this final. His second season was even better though, getting into the combos of being one of the best goalies in the world, with one of the greatest goalie performances I've ever seen live against Brentford, and also winning the AFCON title with Senegal. But unfortunately, the downfall was just as quick as the rise, as he began to commit some really bad errors, actually losing his spot back to Kepa and fracturing his finger in training. So his Chelsea career ended unceremoniously and he went out to become rich in the Saudi land, where he is currently playing well, but let's be honest man, no one cares about actual football over there. Thiago Silva was the true legendary veteran leader for Chelsea, being an essential locker room presence in his first season at the club. And despite being 36, he was also still a great player, unfortunately having to come off after a groin injury in the first half, but setting the tone for the defense to carry out the rest of the game. He then proceeded to age like the absolute finest of wines, still being a top level player even when his physical attributes were declining and being the lone bright spot in that horrible 22-23 season. He really started struggling with fitness though, and thus moved back to Brazil in 2024, where he played for Fluminense for a couple of seasons, instantly being assigned the captaincy and playing great whenever he was healthy. And in this past winter window, despite being 41 years old, Silva came going back to Europe to play for his old team Porto, trying to help them win the league as one of the best defenders of his generation. Reece James was another Chelsea Youth Academy standout, starting at right wing-back this game at just 21 years of age. He was tasked with marking fellow Englishman Raheem Sterling, and James largely locked down the superstar attacker, displaying a defensive masterclass and cementing his label as one of the world's best young fullbacks. Then next season, James dropped the young part of that label, with some saying he was simply the most complete right back in football, with great offensive production combined with strength and pace in defense. But unfortunately, he suffered a major knee injury in 2022, and despite being named club captain, James couldn't really get on the pitch after that, having 3 basically lost seasons because of his knee and hamstring issues. This season though has been a bit better, as his minutes and role are slightly limited to keep him from overexerting his body, so while he is now a top level defender, his true maximum ceiling sadly probably won't be seen. Ben Chilwell started on the other side to Reece James, having gotten his starting spot back from Marcos Alonso a couple months prior. It was really his first time playing as a left wing back specifically, but he adapted to the role well and was a standout in this game, having also played every minute against Real Madrid in the semis. He then began the next season on a crazy run of form, scoring a goal in 3 straight games, but unfortunately in November, Chilwell tore his ACL, which left him out for the rest of the season. Then 1 year later, he was getting back to fitness, but suffered a severe hamstring injury which ended that season early as well, and sadly kept him out of the World Cup squad. So because of these injuries and because he didn't fit Enzo Maresca's system, Chilwell was exiled from the squad and then moved to Strasbourg this season, where he is finally healthy again and playing regularly as a starter. Callum Hudson-Odoi was an unused sub in this game, but he played some matches in Chelsea's UCL campaign, sometimes actually at right wing back. Tuchel tried him in this new position and I guess it kinda worked, but he was still clearly recovering from his tough Achilles tear in 2019 and played less and less as Chelsea advanced through the knockouts. And this pretty much persisted in the rest of his time at Chelsea, as he couldn't get consistent minutes and re-aggravated his Achilles in 2022, which led to a loan to Leverkusen. Things were now looking rough as he failed to impress under Xabi Alonso, so Chelsea didn't want him anymore and only got $3 million from Forest for him, but this move ended up being a great decision for his career. At Forest, the former wonder kid finally got a place to start some games, scoring a debut goal and ending up with 8 of those in his first year to now be a key player for a side threatening to relegate Spurs. Cesar Azpilicueta, or Dave as some people called him, was the 3rd veteran defender in this back 3 that Chelsea played. He'd been at Chelsea for almost a decade at this point, and as the captain on the day, he made a crucial interception to deny City a certain equalizer and secured his place as a club legend. But he was now 32 years old, so he began to play a little less afterwards, being linked to a move back to Spain in 2023, and his age kinda did show as he started to get some small injuries here and there. So after the aforementioned chaos season, Azpi moved to Atletico Madrid, where he started off well but then tore his meniscus in January, and the rest of his time in Madrid saw him playing pretty sparingly. But he was still obviously a great player to have in the locker room, so Sevilla decided to sign him, where he again has been pretty injury prone but performs pretty well whenever he's healthy. Andreas Christensen is the guy who came on for Thiago Silva in the final, sliding in seamlessly to get Chelsea to the finish line. This was the cherry on top to his breakout season at Chelsea, as he turned into a regular after having inconsistent minutes under Frank Lampard. But while it seemed like his rise was continuing in the next season, he began to have lots of trouble with his nerves and resulting stomach issues, with reports that he would pull out of games the morning before. Negotiations for a new contract also stalled multiple times, so Christensen moved to Barcelona for free, where he was pretty solid in his first 2 seasons, dealing with some injuries but being great whenever he played. However, the injury issues increased after Hansi Flick arrived at Barca, as Christensen missed months at a time with some bad Achilles problems and just recently actually suffered a partial tear of his ACL in training. Matteo Kovacic came on for Mason Mount in the 80th minute, playing in his first UCL final despite having won 3 titles with Real Madrid before. He only played 10 minutes and was a key player in the earlier stages, so the reason he didn't play more was because of a muscle injury he picked up while warming up for the quarters. This theme kinda persisted throughout his next 2 years at the Bridge, as he was a key player whenever he could get on the pitch but suffered from numerous small injuries that made it hard to be consistent. So when somewhat of a surprising move, Kovacic moved to league rivals Man City, and he was actually pretty healthy in his first season in Manchester, being a key player in the middle and winning the Prem title with them. But now that kinda felt like it was his body's last hurrah, as for the last 2 years, Kovacic has barely played any games, mostly finding himself in the medical tent with a tough ankle injury this season. Hakim Ziyech didn't play in this final, but he contributed throughout the knockout stages of this campaign, coming off the bench in most games. He had scored against Atletico in the round of 16 second leg, but his first season at the club was characterized by glimpses of magic mixed with enduring inconsistency. Thus, he did not play much during his next 2 years in London, having some moments where it was clear why Chelsea paid 40 mil for him, but overall being a disappointment and having multiple transfer sagas. His international exploits must be mentioned though, as despite his struggles at Chelsea, Ziyech was Morocco's talisman at the World Cup, playing at a top level during his country's historic and dreamland run to the semis. It wasn't enough to get him back into the Chelsea rotation though, and he himself really just wanted to leave. So in 2023, Ziyech moved to Galatasaray for free, looking to feel appreciated again. However, things didn't go well there either, as he began to become increasingly injury prone, then having a breakdown in relations with the management of Galatasaray, and is now playing for Wydad Casablanca at just 32 years of age. Jorginho started alongside Kante as the second member of the double pivot, being more of the link between the defense and the attack. Having been a key player during Italy's 2020 Euros triumph, Jorginho brought composure and vision to this UCL final as well, delivering a calm and assured performance to balance with Kante's constant pressing. And these calm, smart performances led him to finish third in the Ballon d'Or that year, but after another very solid season, he actually made a surprise move to crosstown rivals Arsenal in 2023. This was a mid-season transfer that happened because his contract was expiring, so Mikel Arteta saw an opportunity to get an experienced winner into his young Arsenal squad. And while he played less than before, his quality and control was still evident, being a great locker room presence and coming on at the end of games to steady the ship and guarantee the result. And now at 34 years of age, Jorginho plays for Flamengo back in his home country of Brazil, winning the Copa Libertadores recently to top off a great trophy-filled career. Olivier Giroud was Chelsea's top goal scorer in this UCL season, and while he didn't play in the final, he was a key reason why they got there. He famously scored 4 goals against Sevilla in the group stage, and also got an old man bicycle kick against Atletico in the round of 16, still having some ability despite being 34 at the time. But because he was now stuck behind the younger players in London, Giroud left to AC Milan after this UCL win, where he truly showed that he was aging like fine wine and helped Milan win their first Serie A in 11 years. He then continued to be great throughout the next 2 seasons, ending up with 49 goals and 20 assists over 3 years in Milan, also becoming Gianluigi Buffon for a game against Genoa. At 37 now though, it looked like it was time for Giroud to go off into the sunset, as he signed for LA in the MLS and reunited with his close friend Hugo Lloris, getting 5 goals and 3 assists and also making the MLS Cup final. But I guess he still has some itch because he's now back playing in Europe, currently being Lille's main striker, where his age is kinda showing now, but he's 39 years old, man. Props to him for still belonging at this level. And the man who Giroud was behind was the exciting and pacey Timo Werner, who had a decent first season at Chelsea after signing for 53 million that summer. He didn't score in this final, but his constant runs in behind and his general high intensity effort were a big part of breaking down City's defense, so there was a lot of hope that he'd become a star in the coming seasons. But unfortunately, his first season was actually his best season in blue, as for some reason he couldn't finish for his life after that, and I would have rather put my money in NFTs than bet on him scoring a one-on-one. So he went back to Leipzig just 2 seasons after joining Chelsea, where he played a little better and got 16 goals in Germany, but it still wasn't the same as before, and he also suffered a bad ankle injury in November. That led him to become a bench player, which made him look for a move out, and my team Spurs then decided to take a chance on him in 2024, where as Spurs fans will remember, his finishing was just horrible. He always gave an effort and was better coming off the bench, but sadly the confidence in himself looked like it was completely gone by now. So after leaving us in 2025, he is now in the MLS at just 30 years of age. I'd appreciate it if you liked and subscribed if you enjoyed the video, comment below what you'd want to see next, and thank you for all the support so far.